Of today's plenary, the Senate has rescheduled 7 bills that will be coming up for reconsideration. These are bills that the president withhold assents, and then he gave reasons for withholding some of these assents. And then the Senate has redrafted these bills and effected corrections on some of those portions of this bill. And then those bills will be reconsidered today. In fact, they've actually been recommitted to the Committee of the Whole. And one of these bills includes the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill. Well, the Senate will also be considering about 11 bills for second reading, including the Police Reform Act Amendment Bill. Now, the Senate is already sitting. Therefore, we'll take you straight to the Red Chamber so as to follow proceedings of Wednesday's plenary.
The second to the 8 orders of the day are second reading bills as listed in the order paper. Distinguished senators will recall that about 7 bills were declined assent by Mr. Presidency for several reasons, and these bills have been worked on by our technical committee with the recommendations approved by the Senate. The purpose of these bills is for them to be referred to the relevant committees for consideration. Distinguished senators will also recall that these bills went through the 3rd readings in both chambers of the National Assembly. Therefore, there will be no need for further debate on them. I therefore move that these bills be read the second time and referred to the relevant committee one after the other.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that the bills be read a second time and be referred to the relevant committees. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate. Okay. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to alter the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 to provide immunity for members of the legislature in respect of words spoken or written at plenary sessions or committee proceedings and institutionalized legislative bureaucracy in the Constitution and for related matters 2019, second reading.
A bill for an act to alter the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, to provide immunity for members of the legislature in respect of words spoken or written at plenary sessions or committee proceedings and institutionalized legislative bureaucracy in the Constitution and for related matters 2019 is read a second time. This is referred to the Committee on Constitutional Review and report back next legislative day. Clerk of Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to alter the provision of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 to replace the name Nigerian Police Force with Nigerian Police to reflect their core mandate of providing civil services and for related matters 2019, second reading.
A bill for an act to alter the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 to replace the name Nigeria Police Force with Nigerian Police to reflect their core mandate of providing civil services and for related matters 2019 is read a second time. This is referred to the Committee on Constitutional Review to report back on next legislative day. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to alter the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 to further strengthen the judiciary for speedy dispensation of justice and for related matters 2019, second reading.
A bill for an act to alter the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 to further strengthen the judiciary for speedy dispensation of justice and for related matters 2019 is read a second time. This bill is referred to Committee on Constitutional Review and Establishment of Public Service Matters and to report back next legislative day. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to alter the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, to reflect the establishment and core functions of the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, and for related matters, 2019, second reading.
A bill for an act to alter the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, to reflect the establishment and core functions of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, and for related matters, 2019, is read the second time. This bill is now referred to the Committee on Constitutional Review and Establishment of Public Service Matters. Report back next legislative day. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to alter the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, to provide for the procedure for passing a constitution alteration bill where the President withholds assent, and for related matters, 2019, second reading.
A bill for an act to alter the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, to provide for the procedure for passing a constitutional alteration bill where the President withholds assent, and for related matters, 2019. This is read the second time, and this bill is referred to the Committee on Constitutional Review. Report back next legislative day. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to alter the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, to specify the period within which the President or Governor of a state present the appropriation bill before the National Assembly or House of Assembly, and for related matters, 2019, second reading.
A bill for an act to alter the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, to specify the period between which the President or Governor of the state presents the appropriation bill before the National Assembly or House of Assembly, and for related matters, 2019, is read the second time. This bill is referred to Committee on Constitutional Review. Report back on next legislative day. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to establish the Independent National Assembly budget
Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very respected colleagues, the ninth order of the day is the second reading of the Electric Cars Introduction Bill 2019. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Wednesday, the 10th day of April 2019. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Bear Murray Bruce to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
President. What?
Yes, point of order.
Mr. President, sir, Babajide Omowurare, Senator representing Osun East, Ife-Ijesha, Senatorial District. When we were debating the report, Order 77, but before that, I just want to lay the foundation, sir. We were debating the report of committee, the technical committee set up on the bills returned by Mr. President. And I said we must not put ourselves in a position that Mr. President keeps rejecting our bills. Out of 17 bills, I think, Mr. President, from the report of the committee, we agreed more or less with the position of Mr. President. Mr. President of the Federal Republic, that is, not Mr. President of the Senate. Order 77 that I'm raising, that I raised the last time we debated this issue, is that there must be an amendment to that provision that provides for scrutiny and the legal department to have a look at bills. I am of the view, having gone through the lead debate, that this should be a motion that should advise the executive arm of government to do the needful, just like President Macron is doing at the moment in France. We cannot, by way of an act of parliament, tell the executive arm of government that by 2035 there must be electric vehicles in Nigeria and we must all use electric vehicles in Nigeria. That is my submission, sir.
So I don't know where we have not even got to where you are talking about just really out of order. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I think we skipped the item number 8 of the by Senator Porker for second reading. No, let's step that because he's not here anyway, so we can step it and then we go to this one. Is it better we stand down the podcast, but then we go to this?
Mr. President, procedurally, we have already introduced his bill for second reading. Can we allow the debate to take place and then thereafter?
Okay. Senator Ben Murray Bruce.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Ben Murray Bruce, representing Bayelsa East. It gives me great pleasure to read the lead debate on a bill for an act to phase out petrol vehicles in 2035 and introduce electric cars, SB 726. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, permit me to lead this debate on this all-important bill. The bill was first read on the floor of the hallowed chambers on the 10th of April 2019. Distinguished colleagues, I chose to present this bill for two major reasons. First is that combustion engine cars have caused and continue to cause several deaths in our country through uncontrolled pollution. Secondly, we have been spending over 1 trillion naira annually subsidizing fuel in this country. By introducing electric cars, fuel subsidy will be automatically eliminated, and those funds will be channeled into building infrastructure and educating our people. Virtually all industrialized nations have set a date when petrol cars will be banned, and Nigeria will be making history by becoming the first in Africa to ban petrol cars in 2035, as proposed by this bill. The prominent features of an electric car is that it is rechargeable. No fuel or gas is required. No pollution. It also provides quite smooth operation, stronger acceleration, and requires less maintenance than internal combustion engines. To charge your electric cars, all the filling stations will be replaced with solar charging stations. Thankfully, this country is blessed with sunlight 365 days in a year and will empower these solar stations. America is no longer building refineries because they know that gasoline is going the way of the VCR. Electric cars are outselling petrol cars as witnessed in Norway just a few weeks ago. It makes more sense to build Nigeria's biggest power plant than her biggest refinery. Recently, Rome has placed ban on electric cars. The Italian capital is one of the most traffic-clogged cities in the world. But the damage done by these engines is threatening the thousands of historic monuments in that country. As you may know, Rome has no major industries, so nearly all of the air pollution in the Italian capital is caused by motor vehicles. Car pollution is one of the major causes of global warming. Cars and trucks emit carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases, which contribute to global warming pollution. Greenhouse gases trap heat in the atmosphere, which cause worldwide temperature to rise. Burning excessive amounts of fossil fuels such as gasoline and diesel will cause and continue and cause a lot of harm. In a recent publication in an annual State of Global Air report published by the Health Effect Institute, air quality in Nigeria and at least 10 other countries is among the deadliest anywhere in the world. Electric cars are smart, comfortable, cheaper to maintain, and most importantly, environmentally friendly. Distinguished colleagues, I ask you to support this bill, not only as a way of checking rising debts in a country caused by increasing pollution, as well as cutting the cost of oil subsidies in Nigeria, but also force us to tackle our biggest challenge to industrialization, which is electricity. Thank you very much.
Yes, and to Bernard Jibril.
I am sure neither the government will not let the opposition because the way we are getting you from that
Mike, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. I am Bernard Jibril. I represent Kano North. Mr. President, it's a fact that electric cars have a lot of advantages. They are friendly to the environment and they are friendly to the cost of our health in a way that we can bring or we can take away the hazards associated with cars that use diesel and petrol. But Mr. President, making it mandatory that everyone should resort to using electric cars at a given date, I think it's not something that is feasible. It's not something that is doable. We have to look at the individual networks, the network of individual Nigerians. Can we be able to do this? Of course, the answer is no. And we all know the importance of a car to every family, not only in Nigeria, but to every individual in the world. It is important to have a vehicle so that you can convey your family, you can do all the things that are needed to transport you to your work, to any other place that you need to go in running your life. Now, to say that you cannot drive a vehicle, you cannot own a vehicle unless it is an electric car, I think it's something that will not work. To me, it is important we look at this reason and allow time to come when every Nigerian can afford to have one. But to say that in Nigeria we should create a law, we should enact a law that will force every Nigerian to do away with a petrol car or a diesel car and make it mandatory for everyone to own an electric car is not something that is doable. You are now saying that, look, you have a car, put it aside. Don't use the car again. Go and look for money and buy an electric car. This is not something that is doable. I sympathize with the mover of the motion, with the sponsor of the bill, with the sponsor of the bill. It has very good intendments, but the fact is the economic perspective of it. Not everybody has that economic wherewithal to do away with his car and go and buy an electric car. So please, let's put this on hold and allow time to allow every Nigerian, once we are all ready, we all have the money to buy electric car, then we can go in, we can go out and buy the cars. But for now, let's put this on hold. I say submit.
Deputy Senate President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues. Let me congratulate my friend and brother, Senator Ben Bruce Murray, for his uncommon common sense. And I want to thank him for the very brilliant ideas he has exhibited in the lead debate. But what is not common in the sense, looking at the lead debate, is the need for legislation for us to introduce electric cars in Nigeria. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, if we look back in history, we remember that days gone by, we are using donkeys and bicycles for transportation. We never required any legislation to start using cars. And even when we started using cars, there was need for more people to move around. So Keke Napep came into our scene. There was no law that introduced it. I believe the issue of vehicles is an ancillary to the provisions of Section 41 that gives us freedom of movement. So it's inalienable. It is already provided for in our Constitution. So we don't require any law to deal with it. So I believe, sir, that Senator Ben Bruce may consider taking back the bill and do further consultations. And I know that he's a very wise man. And he will listen to this argument. And more importantly, Mr. President, in the economic sense, Nigeria is an oil-producing country. We cannot sit here as a parliament to be encouraging something that will hurt our own economy. It should be our responsibility to do everything to frustrate electric cars so that we'll be able to sell our oil and gas. So once more, I would like to advise my brother and friend to have a rethink and do further consultations. That is my contribution.
Yes, point of order, Senator Chendu.
Okay. Mr. President, I'm referring us to Order 77 sub 3. Order 77 3 says, and I read, a compendium of the background information and financial implications shall accompany every bill. Mr. President, I think this bill is not accompanied by any financial implications, and I think it is incompetent to be considered.
Senator Ben Bruce.
Mr. President.
You are withdrawing.
Mr. President. You know, I can never quarrel with my leaders and my friends. However, I want some of my colleagues to close their eyes and dream they're in the 21st century. That's all. You cannot function as if you're in the dark ages. I will withdraw the bill, but I want you to think. In a few years' time, let me finish. In a few years' time, can you let me finish? Senator Marafa, let me finish. In a few years' time, combustion engine cars will not be manufactured in the world anymore. They're going to stop all manufacturing, whether you like it or not. Okay, that is fine. Wait. Can you let me finish? Oh, Mr. President, I apologize. Can you let me finish? Now, these cars will not be manufactured. I drive an electric car in Abuja. I own one for 5 years. I charge it with solar power. It has never had a problem for 5 years. I own a Tesla. And I own a Tesla and I drive a Tesla, and it's an amazing car. It is cheaper to manufacture, it is cheaper to maintain, and it is great for our country. For the sake of my colleagues, I will withdraw the bill. You do not belong in the 21st century, and I understand. I will withdraw the bill, and I hope you can improve as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Senator Ben Mori Bruce has voluntarily agreed to withdraw the bill. So we'll take that bill as withdrawn. And then your point of order is noted. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, I move that we stand down the consideration of the 10th order of the day, which is the National Assembly Budget and Research Office Bill 2019. Senator Polka, the chairman of the committee, is on another legislative assignment, and therefore we stand it down till another legislative date. I so move.
No, we jumped it.
We jumped it. Yeah.
The second one. I second the motion.
That's moved by the leader.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
I'll tell you what to say now. I won't get the ball to give one.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the 11th order of the day, second reading of the 1999 Constitution Alteration Bill 2019. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Wednesday, the 10th of April 2019. Mr. President, once again, you may wish to invite Senator Ben Bruce to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Senator Ben Mori Bruce.
Mr. President, order. I'd like my colleagues to pay attention. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, once again, my name is Ben Mori Bruce, representing Bayelsa East. As you know, I have intellectual bills, not bills to build schools in the village. All right, pay attention. I am honored to present the lead debate for a bill to allow persons of African origin, pay attention, ladies and gentlemen, to acquire Nigerian citizenship for purposes of reintegration and development. The bill is called the Right of Return, 2019. It's a proposed piece of legislation that grants persons of African origin Nigerian citizenship. This bill was first read on the floor of the hallowed chambers on the 10th of April 2019. Why Right of Return Bill? First, it is important to note that under international law, each country has the right to decide for itself to whom it will give citizenship. No nation has developed from an undeveloped nation to a developed nation by relying solely on the know-how of its own people. 40% of Fortune 500 companies were either founded by immigrants or their children. Yahoo was founded by a Taiwanese. eBay was founded by a Frenchman. And Pfizer was founded by a German. Independence is a gimmick. No nation is really independent. If you think America is independent, then ask all the Nigerian medical personnel working there to come home and our health sector will collapse. Ask all Mexican temporary workers to return to Mexico, and California and Texas will go bankrupt. Nigeria suffered from a brain drain in the early 80s to the late 90s. And even now, there's still a measure of brain drain. Long before then, Africa's greatest resources, its human resource, was pillaged through the Trans-Sahara and transatlantic slave trade. Legislation like Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation ended the slave trade. We must also legislate to recover from its effects. Nations do not develop because of what they have under their ground. Their development comes from what is between their ears of their citizens. Nigeria needs to reverse the brain drain, and we must attract foreign direct investment. Right now, we're experiencing capital flight. But if we allow wealthy and middle-income Americans, African Europeans, and other African diaspora people get domicile in Nigeria, they will bring the human and material resources we need to fast-track our development as a nation. Currently, our own diaspora remits $21 billion back home annually. This is the single largest source of foreign income Nigeria presently has. It is more than the shrinking income from oil. It is more than the foreign aid we get. It is even more than the World Bank or the IMF are prepared to lend us. With this right of return bill, we can triple this amount by opening up a nation to desirable immigrants. Israel today is the most technologically advanced and economically stable nation outside Europe and America. How did they achieve this? The answer is that they passed a law of return on the 5th of July 1950 that gave Jews the right to return to live in Israel and to gain Israeli citizenship no matter what the original country of citizenship is. In 1970, they extended that right to persons married to any Jew. More than any piece of legislation, this law can be credited with having helped speed up the development of the state of Israel. Distinguished colleagues, I wish to re-emphasize that independence is unreliable as an economic model to take a nation to greatness. Nations that want to be great must move from independence to interdependence, and the way to do it is by opening up their borders to the specific group of people that will help grow their economy. It is for this reason that I have proposed the right of return bill to allow persons of African heritage in the diaspora who have requisite education and sufficient finances become Nigerian citizens. And if they have not gotten the citizenship of any other African nation, and if they have no criminal record, I therefore ask for your support for this bill, which among other things are for the purpose of reintegration and speedy development. Thank you.
That is good, but with this Boko Haram that was...
I can see there are many contributors to this debate. Okay, Deputy Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues. Let me first of all thank distinguished Senator Murray Ben Bruce for a very brilliant approach in sympathy with the situation in Nigeria to attract Africans who he believed should be given the citizenship of Nigeria. Sir, let me say that if you have read the constitutional debate on the 1999 Constitution, no chapter has received the kind of inputs that the issue of citizenship has received. I think it's about 2 volumes, if you have read carefully. And if you look at it, what distinguished Senator Muri Bruce is trying to do is perfectly covered under Section 25, 26, 27, and 28 of the 1999 Constitution. The combined effect, sir, the combined effect of this provision gave citizenship by birth under Section 25, gave citizenship by registration under Section 26. Under Section 27, it gave citizenship by naturalization. And then it prescribed in the 7th schedule what it is. And in the answer, it gave power to the president to make regulation which shall be laid before the National Assembly as it relates to taking citizens of other nations as citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It's so exhaustive, sir. So what he is seeking to do is adequately provided. What I think is missing in that his bill is that we cannot by law or by altering the provision of the Constitution. I think that is the most important word used there. Coerce people to be citizens of Nigeria. First of all, you must apply. You must signify your intention to remain in Nigeria. You must have good character. And so many prescriptions have been made. And once these are made and reached, the president has the discretion to grant that citizenship, sir. So I think it may amount to an unnecessary reminder of truth if we embark on another alteration to attempt to bring within the purview of our Constitution what our makers of the Constitution do not foresee. Again, respectfully, sir, beautiful as the argument of distinguished Senator Muri Ben-Bruce is in respect of this bill, it might be advisable and convenient to at this stage advise that a careful reading and interpretation of the provision of the Constitution, and in this effect specifically, Section 25, 26, 27, and 28, is sufficient to cover the necessary intendment contained in his alteration. And I'm of the view that it may not necessarily be in the interest of Parliament to waste this precious time as we're approaching the end of 8th Parliament to begin to consider what, in my opinion, with the greatest respect, amounts to unnecessary reminder of truth. Thank you very much, sir.
Mr. President, my respected colleagues, Dino Melaye, Kogi West. Mr. President, I want to start by saying that I think Senator Nala is not completely digesting the bill as presented by Senator Muri Ben-Bruce. I don't think from the presentation by Senator Ben-Bruce is challenging those provisions as read by Senator Nala. But what he is telling the Nigerian Senate is to open it up, meaning the stringent conditions and conditionalities already embedded in the Constitution be lifted or softened to get other Africans to become Nigerians. Mr. President, my colleagues, with maximum and profound respect to the highly intellectually sagacious Ben Muri Bruce, this bill is not only utopian, but it is catastrophic. Catastrophic in the sense, as I speak to you, my dear colleagues, Nigeria is near 200 billion people. 200 million people, sorry. 200 million people. And our current growth rate is 2%. It's over 2%. And at this alarming growth rate, As I speak, we are incapacitated and not capable of funding subsidy. We are operating our budget on credit. We are passing another budget now, and we are going to build that budget on borrowing. You now want us to open our borders and nationality and citizenship and allow Africans to come freely, open up, and maybe in the next 5 or 6 years, we have a population of 500 million. If that happens, Mr. President, Murray Ben Bruce, a successful businessman, in the next 10 years will be a corporate and executive beggar on the street of Lagos. We must, as a Senate, begin to look at what we can do to check our present growth rate, to have relationship and correspondence with our economic, social, and infrastructural development. In XYZ, my brotherly advice to a very patriotic Nigerian, to a Nigerian that have no identity issue, Murray Ben Bruce, is to respectfully, humbly repeat what he did with the former bill so that we can make progress. Thank you.
Senator Binta Masi.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name is Binta Masi Garba, Adamawa North Senatorial District of Adamawa State. I stand to wholeheartedly align myself with the two previous speakers on this bill that is being sponsored by a friend and a colleague, Senator Ben Bruce. The question I would have asked is based on the subject that has to do to the amendment of the 1999 Constitution. So if we can recall, with the antecedents that we have as a nation, the issue of insecurity in our nation, because Nigeria is virtually surrounded by about 4 or 5 nations, mostly the Cameroon, Chad Republic, Niger Republic, Benin Republic, and to a large extent, and we've seen the influx of people, goods, and services to this country. And with the issues that we have in hand, I think the Constitution has totally taken care of that. But I was expecting if Ben Bruce would have asked for the amendment on what clauses of the Constitution, that probably would have given us the leeway to see what we can do. But I think it's pertinent with the feelings of the Senate if Senator Ben Bruce can retract the bill and probably make some certain amendment in that bill. So I think it's better if we can now take out the bill from it. Thank you.
Distinguished Senator Ben Murray Bruce, any contribution at this point?
Mr. President, I think the bill is misunderstood. I said African descent. I did not say everybody in Africa will become a Nigerian. That's not what I said. I did not say 10 million people will become Nigerians overnight. That was not what I said. We will choose who we want to give a Nigerian passport. The smartest, the brightest, and people, if you, they have a green card lottery to America today. When you become an American citizen through the lottery, They don't choose beggars on the street. They don't choose Boko Haram. They choose the brightest people in the world to become American citizens to grow their economy. So we will choose the brightest in the world to become Nigerian citizens. So that is all I'm saying. I mean, Senator Nala talked about the Constitution, but if every time you want to become a Nigerian citizen, you have to go to the president to approve your citizenship, then we're not going to make any progress. All of our greatest athletes live abroad. All of our greatest doctors live abroad. We want to bring them back to Nigeria. So respectfully, I will not withdraw it. I can be defeated, that's fine. But I'm not going to withdraw it. Thank you, sir.
Let's make progress then. Can I put a question? Those in favor that this bill be read second and say aye. Those against say nay. The nays have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished and respected colleagues, the 12th order of the day is the second reading of the Federal College of Forestry, Technology and Research, Akampa Establishment Central Bill 2019. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Tuesday, 27th November 2018. Mr. President, we wish to invite Senator Geshem Bassi to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Senator Geshem Bassi.
Thank you, Mr. President. Geshem Bassi, Cross River South Senatorial District. Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues, permit me to lead the debate on this very essential bill, which seeks to provide for the establishment of the Federal College of Forestry, Technology and Research in Akampa local government, Cross River State. This bill was first read on the floor of this Senate on the 27th November 2018. Distinguished colleagues, the establishment of the College of Forestry, Technology and Research in Akampa is long overdue because Cross River State and Akampa local government in particular has 40% of Africa's richest closed canopy tropical rainforest. This forest harbors the largest remnant of comparably unlogged tropical rainforest in Africa. And it is the home of a wide range of rare species of animals and plants found only in Akampa, like the drill monkey, the gray-necked rock fowl, and the Prisus red Columbus monkey. The forest is also reputed to be the richest site in the whole of Africa for butterflies. Mr. President, experts from various institutes of forestry across the world and professionals from other colleges of forestry within Nigeria come to Akampa to conduct research on distinctive forest species that would enhance the economic and ecological importance of their research. As I speak, Mr. President, the World Wildlife Fund, WWF, the Nigerian Conservation Foundation, NCF, and the Federal Park Service, FPS, are carrying out series of projects that will aid in the development and conservation of the forest resources in Akampa local government. Other international wildlife societies have also recognized and have appreciated the richness of the virgin forest cover in Akampa local government area. Therefore, the establishment of a Federal College of Forestry, Technology and Research in Akampa will bring Nigeria great benefits, as Akampa is the source and location of various species of forest materials. Forestry professionals will also have a proper base for their research work at the location of their research materials. Some of the objectives of the college are to provide full or part-time courses in forestry technology, training, and award national and higher national diplomas, to carry out research, training, extension, and dissemination of findings in forestry technology, development, applied science, commerce, and management, to provide genetic resources of forest, trees, and ecosystem for economic development, and to make suitable arrangements for the application of the results of the research work by the federal, state governments and the private sector for the economic development of Nigeria. Once again, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, the importance of locating a college in the source of its research materials need not be overemphasized. In line with Order 77 subsection 3 of the Senate Standing Rules, please find attached a compendium of the financial implications for the establishment of the college. I humbly urge you, my colleagues, to support this bill in its entirety. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Lidani.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Joshua Lidani. I represent from the South. I'd like to first of all commend the mover of this bill, Senator Gershom Bashi, for bringing up this very, very important bill, which seeks to establish a college of forestry technology in Akampa. We all know that our forest reserves are fast depleting, and especially in the north, we have problem of desertification. And over the years, attempts by government have been made in order to ensure that our ecosystem is not destroyed by deforestation. But sadly, not much effort has been done in this regard. And therefore, it's very interesting that Senator Bassi is bringing up this bill so as to establish a college of forestry in order to train students, middle-level cadre students, who will be the people that will be responsible for training others and for educating others on the need for us to maintain our ecosystem, including their forest reserves. I know that Akampa, which is in Cross River, is one of the areas that is richly endowed with forest reserves. Not only forest reserves, forest, flora, and the fauna. And a lot of efforts by international agencies have been done in studying these areas. But there is a need to disseminate the outcome of this research through the establishment of this college. If this college is established, it will be able to train people who will go out to train others, so that the effort by the government towards conservation of our forests will yield the desired results. So I rise to second this motion, and I urge my colleagues to do the same.
Senator James Banja.
Thank you, Mr. President, my respected colleagues. Team's manager, Delta South. Mr. President, this is not a controversial bill, and coming from Gershom Bashi, I think it's a very straightforward bill. He has captured all the necessary ingredients in this bill, particularly section Rule 73(3) of our rules book. I think it's a straightforward bill. I support the bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Anybody against it? I'll put the question. Those in favor that this bill read second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to establish the Federal College of Forestry Technology and Research, ACAMPA, to provide full-time courses in forestry technology and other fields of studies, and to make provision for the general administration of the college and for other matters connected therewith, 2019, second reading.
A bill for an act to establish Federal College of Forestry Technology and Research, ACAMPA, to provide full-time courses in forestry technology and other fields of studies, and to make provisions for the general administration of the college and for other matters connected therewith, 2019, second reading. This bill is referred to Committee of Agric and Rural, report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the 13th order of the day is the second reading of the Documentation and Protection of Domestic Workers and Employees Bill 2019. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Wednesday, 18th July 2018. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Magnus Abe to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Senator Magnus Abe.
Mr. President, my distinguished and very eminent colleagues, I rise to lead the debate on a bill for an act to provide for the documentation and protection of domestic workers and employers of domestic workers in the Federal Republic of Nigeria by the Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment and for other related matters. The bill was first read on the floor of the Senate on the 18th of July 2018. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, over the years, our nation has experienced an increase in incidents of assaults and abuse of domestic workers by their employers or hosts. These abuses border on slave labor, physical abuse, and sexual abuse, to mention a few. The stories are gory, traumatic, and mind-boggling, especially against the background that these domestic workers exist in the informal sector. They are not unionized, and they do not have collective platform to speak for themselves, and therefore remain ostensibly vulnerable and helpless. On the other side of the coin is the rise of the spate of complicity of crimes committed by domestic workers, mostly in connivance with other criminal elements of society against their employers or hosts. These border on burglary, kidnapping, stealing of children, and sometimes outright murder. Distinguished colleagues, due to urbanization, fast-growing cities with Celtic traffic in Nigeria, such as Port Harcourt, Lagos, Abuja, Kano, and other cities, have put significant pressure on working-class parents of different categories of the society, compelling many of them to spend more time at home, more time at workplaces, and far less time at home. The concomitant effect of this is that many families from the low, middle to high income class families have come to the inevitable reality of the necessity of employing and relying on domestic workers to attend to their needs at home. It is saddening to note that a very vulnerable group of this category of domestic workers have been consistently preyed upon by their employers or hosts. These are mostly housemaids, houseboys, wards, and sometimes even extended family members. A lot of these workers are unregistered and not supported by most national labor laws. They work for private households, usually without clear terms of employment, particularly in our country. The Labor Act in Section 65 states that the minister may make regulations providing for engagement, repatriation, or supervision of domestic workers, of domestic servants, the employment of women and domestic servants, the housing, accommodation, and sanitary arrangements of domestic servants, the conditions of domestic service generally. Unfortunately, however,
Nigeria is yet to have a codified legislation that provides for the rights of domestic workers. Exploitation and human rights abuses that domestic workers have to contend with, as well as the lack of legal protection, which makes it difficult for them to seek remedies. The International Labour Organization came up with the Domestic Workers Convention 2011, number 189. This groundbreaking treaty established the first global standards for domestic workers. The new standards encourage governments to protect domestic workers from violence and abuse, and to regulate private employment agencies that recruit and employ domestic workers, and to prevent child labor in domestic work. Since that convention, many other countries are undertaking legislative reforms to bring their laws into compliance with the agreed international standards. Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues, this bill does not only seek to protect the domestic workers, it will also protect the employers of domestic workers. Investigations have also shown that a significant percentage of gory crimes, such as kidnapping, armed robbery, murder, and highway robberies even, have been traced to connivance by domestic workers of their victims. A case in point is the apprehension of a kidnap kingpin, aka Evans, by the Nigerian police, who had been employed severally as a driver to his victims. And most recently, the reported case of the gruesome murder of one Opayesimi Badamasi, chairman of Credit Switch Technology Company in Lagos, by his 22-year-old Togolese cook. Over the years, there have been a plethora of cases reported across this country. I will mention a few of these cases for emphasis. My distinguished colleagues, fresh in our minds is the case of Ms. Elizabeth Ochanya Obaje, a 13-year-old who was abused, it was alleged, by her host, was criminally having unlawful carnal knowledge of her. One Andrew Obuja, a lecturer with the Benue State Polytechnic, Ubokolo, and his son, Victor Obuja, since she was living with them in their house. Ochanaya was diagnosed as having VVF and other related diseases, and eventually she died on the 10th of October 2018 at the Federal Medical Center, Makurdi. There was no law to protect this unfortunate child. In April 2022, the 22nd of April 2015, a Beninois cook, Mr. Victor Hunkwe, was arrested by officers of the Lagos State Police Headquarters, Ikeja Command, for poisoning his employee, Mr. Omowumi Fado Jutomi family, with the intention of granting access to his former cook, Mr. David Amusa, and other armed robbers. In June 2015, ex-FUTA Vice Chancellor, Professor Ilemo Bade, was found dead in his home. It was learned that the former Vice Chairman of the Committee of Vice Chancellors was murdered by his driver, Yemi, and his guard, Daniel. In the light of the composite security challenges we face today as a nation, it is imperative and critical for this 8th Senate to urgently assist the law enforcement agencies with potent legislative interventions such as this very crucial bill. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, the objective of this bill includes A, to protect domestic workers from abuses by providing minimum conditions of service to be met by employers of domestic workers, such as the number of hours to work per day, break and rest time, off days, protection from sexual abuse, physical abuse, slave labor, injury compensation, and mode of payment. It is noteworthy, my distinguished colleagues, that in our country today, several Nigerians, in the name of domestic help and other domestic work, are virtually slaves in our country, and there is no law, no measure of government to protect these Nigerians. This bill will also reduce and deter the propensity of domestic workers' connivance with criminal elements against their employers by maintaining full biometric data and other relevant background information of domestic workers nationwide. The bill will help to keep track of the migration of domestic workers from other countries, migration from state to state, and from one employer to another for security purposes. It will provide for specific and adequate sanctions for offenders within the framework of the law. The bill will formalize the services of all categories of domestic workers, capture their contributions to the GDP of the nation in the formal economic sector in order to enhance national planning. Mr. President, most distinguished colleagues, permit me to respectfully draw attention to the mandate of the Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment, which include the provision of labor protection services, supervision, enforcement, education, and promotion of social justice, ratification, implementation, and review of national labor laws and policies, including collective bargaining agreements. In the light of the above mandate, and against the background of the ministry's cardinal policy, environment, viz. National Policy on Employment, number 2, National Policy on Occupational Safety and Health Welfare, and 3, National Policy on Child Labor. The Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment is best positioned, more than any other ministry or agency in the country, to be given the responsibility of protecting domestic workers and their employers who represent a significant percentage of the informal sector of our country. When this bill is passed into law, the Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment shall take responsibility for hosting a national domestic workers information systems database, be fulfilling part of our mandate by protecting the interest of domestic workers and their employers by providing guidelines and establishing minimum conditions of service to be met by the employers of domestic workers. This bill will be able to generate some internal revenue from a token to be charged as registration fees from employers of domestic workers and the domestic workers themselves. Mr. President, I want to say that whether we admit it or not, our country today is actually resting on the shoulders economically of unregistered, undocumented, and unprotected Nigerians who are slaving away at the bottom of the totem pole of our country, unrecognized, unprotected, and of course, unrewarded. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, in view of the enormous benefits of this bill, which has been elaborately adumbrated in this late debate, I want to urge you, my respected colleagues, all of you know one house boy, all of you know one house girl, all of you know one cousin, one mechanic, one driver, somebody somewhere who needs our help in these chambers. I want to urge you and plead with you that you support that this bill be read a second time in these hallowed chambers. There is a compendium attached in compliance with Order 77, Sub 3 of our standing rules that provides a clear picture of the financial and other general information on this bill. It is worthy of note that this compilation shows below is a summary of the anticipated recurrent and capital expenditure for the Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment following the commencement of this act. I dare say that the benefits of this bill far outweigh whatever expenditure we may make as a country in the furtherance of the protection of our citizens. Thank you very much.
Senator Kabuga.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I'm Kabiru Gaya, presenting the people of Kano South from Kano State. Mr. President, I want to commend Malam Magnus, because the way he dressed today is also Galadima of Port Harcourt. But, Mr. President, this is a very important bill, and both the workers, domestic workers, and the employees really need protection. It's a software bill. I only request that, Mr. President, this bill, we should just sort the views of the opinion of members of the Senate, which I believe they have almost agreed on this, and request to go for second reading. It's a straightforward bill, Mr. President.
Senator Yaya.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Yaya Abdullahi, representing Kebbi North. Mr. President, I would like to commend Senator Magnus Abbey for having the courage and the presence of mind, to bring forward a bill that addresses a very critical human rights and labor issue that have been bedeviling this country. It's a bill, Mr. President, that if it sees the light of the day, can be able to take care of a lot of the abuses and a lot of criminality in the domestic affairs of this country. Mr. President, this bill, I think, has the potential of righting a lot of wrongs that have been happening in our houses, in our business environments, and elsewhere. These people who are employed as domestic workers, both male and female, deserve the care of the legislature. And it is good that we have now woken up to take the challenge of addressing one of the most critical labor issues that have been left in abeyance in the annals of this country. I commend Senator Abbey for bringing this bill, and I would also like to commend its passage to all our colleagues. Thank you, Mr. President.
Anybody against this? I can now put the question. Those in favor that this bill read second time say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to provide for the documentation and protection of domestic workers and employees of domestic workers in the Federal Republic of Nigeria and for other related matters thereto, 2019, second reading.
A bill for an act to provide for the documentation and protection of domestic workers and employees of domestic workers in the Federal Republic of Nigeria and for other related matters thereto, 2019 is read the second time. This bill is referred to the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters and will go back within 4 weeks. Just correction, the earlier bill for the Act for the Federal College of Forestry should be referred to the Committee on Tertiary Education as opposed to Agric and Rural Services. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very respected colleagues, the 14th order of the day is the consideration of the report of the Committee on Police Affairs of the Police Reform Bill 2019. Distinguished senators will recall that the report of the committee was laid on Wednesday, 10th April 2019. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Tijani Kaura, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the consideration of the report.
Senator Kaura, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, my name is Tijani Hayakaura. I represent Zamfara North Senatorial District. Mr. President, I rise to move that the Senate do consider the report of Senate Committee on Police Affairs on a bill for an act to repeal the Police Act Cap B19 laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2014 and enact the Nigeria Police Act 2019 to provide for the framework for the police service and ensure cooperation and partnership between the police and the communities in maintaining peace and combating crime and for other related matters. Mr. President, the Police Act.
And distinguished, let me just get someone to second the motion. Senator Mao Wabon.
Mr. President, distinguished Senator, Senator Mao Wabon, second the motion that the Senate do receive the report. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that we do consider the report of the Committee on Police Affairs on the Police Reform Bill 2019 SB 683 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Carry on, Senator Kara.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the Police Act Cap P19 laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2014 and for repeal and act Bill SB 682 was sponsored by distinguished Senator Bala Ibn Inalla from Kebbi South. The bill was read for the first time and the Senate on Tuesday, 10th day of July 2018 debated on the general principles of the bill and thereafter was read the second time and it was referred to the Senate Committee on Police Affairs through an order of reference dated 11th day of July 2018 to report back its recommendation. Objectives of the bill. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the bill seeks to, among other things, provide for a police force that is more responsible and responsive to the needs of the general public and has entrenched its operation the values of fairness, justice, equity, accountability, cooperating and partnering with the communities it serves, and also to uphold and safeguard the fundamental rights of every person and respect the dignity of persons. The bill is necessitated by the fact that laws that governs the operation of the Nigerian police force has seen no comprehensive review since its initial promulgation in 1943. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I wish to skip item 3, 4, and 5 and move straight to 6.0 because of the importance of the contributions of stakeholders during the public hearing and also because of the very importance of this bill as it regards national security. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, it is opposite to state here that the preponderance of opinion of all stakeholders who made both written and oral presentation at the public hearing commended the intendment of the bill and expressed their total support for its passage into law by the National Assembly. The stakeholders are also unanimous.
Well, this is where we'll round off today's live broadcast of Senate plenary. At the moment, Senate has passed 6 reintroduced constitution alteration bills for second reading. Well, these bills were actually denied assent by the President, and this includes the immunity for members of the legislature, and then the one that seeks to provide for specific time for the presentation of annual budget by the governor and the President before the legislature. Well, this is where we'll round off, and we'll take you straight to our studios for the continuation of the scheduled program for the day. I am Ignatius Nko, and on behalf of the outside broadcast crew, enjoy the rest of our programs.
As unconstitutional act additional provision is amended. 2. Opinions were divided on the provisions of draft bill in section 7.3 regarding the appointment of Inspector General of Police by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, subject to the confirmation of the Senate, ditto for removal of the Inspector General of Police. Thirdly, the stakeholders were unanimous in support of the provision in section 7.6 regarding the tenure of office of Inspector
boundary and zoonotic animal diseases, the prevention of antimicrobial resistance through the control and regulation of the use and administration of veterinary biologics, veterinary drugs, and medical and chemical in animals, animal products, and medicated animal feeds, as well as the sales, distribution of pet foods, veterinary medical devices, and other veterinary products, and for the enhancement of animal welfare and food safety and for related matters 2019, third reading.
A bill for an act to repeal the Animal Disease Control Act, A17 Laws of Federation, 2004, enact the Animal Diseases Control Bill for the purpose of prevention, detection, and control and eradication of infectious and contagious transborder and zoonotic animal diseases, prevention and antimicrobial resistance through the control and regulation of the use and administration of veterinary biologics, veterinary drugs, and chemicals in animals, animal products, and medicated animal feeds, as well as the sales and distribution of pet foods, veterinary medical devices, and other veterinary products, and for the enhancements of animal welfare and food safety, and for related matters 2019 is read the third time and passed. I want to thank all our colleagues for this concurrence, particularly the bill on the Nigerian Police Trust Fund. We believe with the passing of this bill, we would be making big strides towards providing and improving the security and the police in our country. One of the major concerns has always been the issue of funding. We believe with this bill, the provider of funding will be adequate for training and equipment and ensure that one of the greatest challenges we're having is the issue of security. And I'm confident that by the time we also tomorrow lay the report on police reform, we'll have gone a long way in putting and reorganizing and really putting police in the right direction as it should be. And it is our view, I'm sure many of us, that once we have the police doing the work that they should do, we will reduce the burden on the military to really focus.
Information is power. Everyone wants power. So feel powerful with the NTA News mobile app, the one-stop information center. Real news at your fingertip. Be the first to report by uploading first-hand information on the U-Report link, and be the first to know by simply clicking on any of the links on the sidebar for headlines, domestic and foreign news, economy, security, politics, sports, and more. Stream live on your smartphone and tablets and stay connected. It's pretty easy. Simply download NTA News app from your Google Play Store and you're good to go. NTA News mobile app, your access to real-time information.